It had taken Ash longer than he cared to admit to make up his mind. He liked to think of himself as sharp and decisive, but unemployment had a way of dulling confidence. When the firm he worked for collapsed, the job market offered little comfort. Weeks of applications and strained optimism followed, until his wife, Sarana, offered a solution. "There's a vacancy at my office," she said one evening. She called it her office, though technically it belonged to her parents, who remained in India while she managed the European branch of their publishing business. Sarana oversaw rights and royalties for Indian authors whose books were released across the UK and parts of Europe. To Ash, it sounded like straightforward administrative work with respectable profit margins. He was ready to accept immediately, until she outlined the conditions. "First, it's a personal assistant role," she explained. Her current PA, Mel, was going on maternity leave, and the intended replacement had unexpectedly withdrawn. She hesitated. Being his wife's assistant could blur boundaries, and though he felt uncomfortable admitting it even to himself, he had always associated PA roles with women. "Second," Sarana continued, noticing his silence, "it wouldn't look appropriate if my husband was publicly my subordinate. I run a tight ship." "So you'd rather I refuse?" he asked. "Not at all. It just means you'd need a different presentation." He frowned. "And third," she folded her hands calmly, "I've always had a female PA. The position would continue that way." The implication landed heavily. "That's impossible," he protested. "It's temporary," she replied evenly. "And you're not working right now. I think you could manage it." He raised practical concerns, travel documents, public appearances, but Sarana dismissed them. She rarely traveled abroad, and when she did, the office needed someone dependable to maintain operations. He knew the small team well: sales staff, contracts, finance. He could easily absorb administrative duties. But presenting as a woman, that was another matter. "Can I think about it?" he asked. "You have until tomorrow evening," she said gently but firmly. The next day, Sarana returned home visibly exhausted. Over dinner, she finally asked for his decision. "I'll do it," he admitted cautiously. "But I don't want to look ridiculous." She smiled for the first time that day. "You won't. I'll guide you through everything: clothing, mannerisms, presentation. You won't be thrown in unprepared." He still looked unsure. "You don't have a build that makes it impossible," she reassured him. "With practice, confidence does the rest." Despite lingering doubts, and a suspicion he might be stepping into something more complicated than it appeared, he agreed. 3.5 weeks later, Ash wondered how he'd allowed himself to be persuaded so thoroughly. Sarana approached the preparation methodically. She suggested he choose a personal reference point, a woman whose poise and demeanor he admired. To her relief and mild jealousy, he selected an old university acquaintance rather than a celebrity. Her name had been Purnima. That became his professional persona. Sarana liked the meaning of the name, full moon, and said it suited the composed, attentive assistant she envisioned. At first, Ash found the constant reminders awkward. Gradually, he grew accustomed to hearing it applied to him. Training was meticulous. Posture, speech patterns, wardrobe coordination, office etiquette. Nothing was left to chance. A suitable professional wardrobe was assembled. Makeup practice became routine. A wig substituted while his hair grew longer. What surprised Sarana most was how quickly he adapted during practice sessions. When rehearsing, Purnima appeared focused and competent. Outside those moments, Ash returned to himself just as easily. For now, the transformation existed only within the privacy of preparation. Yet as the final days before the handover approached, something subtle shifted. He no longer rushed to scrub off makeup the moment they got home. Skirts stayed on a little longer before being swapped for trousers. The line between rehearsal and reality blurred in quiet, almost accidental ways. One evening, Sarana studied him thoughtfully and said, "You actually look younger like this. 5 years at least." He flushed at that, unsure whether from embarrassment or a flicker of pride. If appearing mid-20s helped the role, it was an advantage he hadn't expected. Sarana certainly treated it like one, reinforcing the idea whenever she could. The Saturday before the handover week began, she arranged a test. Lunch, she announced. Public setting. Low stakes. He nearly refused. They chose a quiet cafe. He wore a soft gray long-sleeve top tucked into a chocolate-brown skirt that fell just below the knee, paired with simple black boots. The look was understated, professional but not attention-grabbing. Sarana had selected modest accessories and subtle additions to create a natural silhouette without excess. He felt painfully conspicuous walking in. "You look normal," Sarana whispered. "That's the point. You'll blend in." At first, every movement felt exaggerated. Every glance from a stranger seemed loaded with meaning. But within minutes, reality contradicted his fears. A few curious looks, nothing more. No confrontation. No laughter. Just the ordinary rhythm of a busy afternoon. By the time they left, relief had transformed into cautious confidence. "You know," he said once they were home, "this might actually work." "I told you it would," she replied. "But don't get complacent. An office is tighter space. Familiar faces. Less room for mistakes." He nodded seriously. Then came the next instruction. "I'll be in early on Monday," Sarana said. "Mel won't expect you until 10. You'll travel separately. No driving." "Why not? Your Audi isn't a PA's car. And parking's limited. More importantly, no one must connect us personally. It's better for both of us." The thought of arriving alone sent a flicker of panic through him. But he remembered the cafe. He'd managed that. Sarana watched him carefully until he gave a steady nod. "Good," she said. He took a taxi, an indulgence he knew wouldn't become routine, and stepped out in front of the modest office building. The door loomed larger than it should have. This was the last moment to turn back. He swallowed, straightened his shoulders, and pressed the buzzer. Mel answered the door with a warm smile. "You must be Purnima." "Please call me Nima," he replied, voice steady despite the pulse in his ears. After brief pleasantries, Mel led him inside. Sarana was finishing a phone call. When she hung up, Mel ushered Nima into her office. He had expected a quick greeting. Instead, he was met with a firm, professional briefing, clear boundaries, expectations, protocols. Tone crisp. No hint of familiarity. Any illusion that this arrangement would be casual vanished instantly. When Sarana dismissed him, Nima returned to Mel's desk slightly dazed. "Is she always that intense?" he asked quietly. Mel grinned. "That's a mild day. She's demanding but fair. When things get busy, we all pitch in. It balances out." She added one more warning. "She likes little tests. Tasks that seem minor. Don't brush them off. Take them seriously, even if they feel trivial." Nima almost said, "That sounds exactly like her," but caught himself in time. The rest of the morning passed in structured orientation. Mel outlined the week ahead before introducing him to the rest of the team. Tom and Enel handled sales, both energetic, sharp, likely late 20s or early 30s. Sarath, the contract specialist, carried the meticulous air of someone who had spent decades scrutinizing fine print. Vari from finance was quieter, observant, and difficult to place in age. Professional composure personified. When it was his turn to explain his background, Nima delivered the story rehearsed with precision. "Hi, I'm Nima. I studied accountancy and worked in finance for a couple of years. It wasn't quite the right fit long-term, so I decided to pivot. A family friend mentioned this opportunity, and I applied before the position circulated widely." Sounded plausible, neutral. As introductions ended and work conversations resumed around him, Nima allowed herself a small, inward breath. The first door had been crossed. Nima continued her introduction smoothly. "I'd always been curious about publishing," she explained. I thought this role might give me a sense of whether it's an industry I'd like to grow in. The explanation sounded natural, even to her own ears. Nima opened it. By dinner this evening you will have a list of the good things and bad things about working as a woman. Her heart jumped. She glanced around instinctively, irrationally worried someone might be watching her screen. Satisfied she was unobserved, she closed the message. This wasn't casual curiosity. Felt like an assessment. The wording struck her immediately. Working as a woman, not working as Nima, not working as a PA. That distinction mattered. Complaints about office workload were irrelevant. This was about identity and experience. She kept a sheet of paper beside her keyboard that day, adding thoughts in quiet moments, crossing some out almost as quickly. By the time the office emptied that evening, she had a list, but not one she felt entirely confident about. When she arrived home, Sarana surprised her. "Change back quickly," she said. "We're going out to dinner." Switching personas wasn't as effortless as it once had been. Ash found himself slower, distracted, still thinking in Nima's cadence. Sarana grew mildly impatient as he finished getting ready. "Got your list?" she asked at the door. He nodded. They walked to their usual Italian restaurant. Along the way, Sarana noticed he hadn't fully shed certain gestures, the tilt of the wrist, the measured steps. She said nothing. At one point, she casually draped her handbag over his extended arm. He blinked in surprise, then laughed and handed it back, keeping his arms stiffly at his sides afterward. She was faintly disappointed he had removed his nail polish so thoroughly. She had planned to tease him with it. Dinner progressed normally until dessert menus arrived. "So," Sarana said lightly, lowering her voice, "shall we review your list?" Ash leaned forward, mindful of nearby tables. "Start with the positives," she whispered theatrically. He cleared his throat. "First, I liked the attention you gave me while teaching me everything." She raised an eyebrow. Flattering answer. Perhaps delivered with a touch too much diplomacy. He smiled sheepishly. "Second, hosiery. Especially tights. I like how they feel." She tried not to look too triumphant. "Third, earrings. I enjoy wearing them. The slightly dangling ones particularly." "I knew it," she murmured. "The way you deliberate over them in the mornings gives you away. When you get your first salary, you can buy more." He flushed. "And fourth, people have been kind. Vari especially seemed sympathetic about my career shift story." "A respectable list," Sarana concluded. "I might allow Ash to wear tights occasionally, given how fond he is of them." He blushed deeper. "Now the negatives." He hesitated. "Makeup. It takes too long." "True," she conceded. "But you wouldn't withstand close scrutiny without it." He nodded. "And, on the bus, I still feel like people are staring because they've guessed." "You're imagining that," she replied firmly. "You're passing far more easily than you think." She leaned closer. "There must be a third." He paused longer this time. "I worry," he said quietly, "that you might look down on me for doing this, even though it was your suggestion." Silence stretched between them. He waited for immediate reassurance that didn't come. The waitress interrupted with dessert plates, breaking the tension. "I'm glad you were honest," Sarana said softly afterward, but she didn't dismiss his fear outright. Months later, Nima stepped through the front door to find Sarana already home, earlier than usual. But something was different. She was furious. "Nima. Bedroom. Now." The tone wasn't playful. Nima obeyed, head lowered. "I have a business dinner tonight," Sarana began sharply. "When I went to my drawer for a new pair of sheer black tights, they were gone. They were there on Monday before I left. Now the empty packaging is in the recycling." The implication hung heavily in the air. Sarana's expression hardened. "They weren't in the drawer. The packaging was in the recycling. I didn't move them." Her gaze fixed on Nima. "Which means you did." She gestured toward the small stool by her dressing table. "Kneel there. Lean forward." Nima obeyed, cheeks burning, heart racing. You have 1 minute to explain, Sarana said coolly. It won't excuse you. But explain. On Tuesday, while Sarana had been in Edinburgh, Mel had invited Nima and Vari out for drinks to celebrate the baby's arrival. Rushing home to change, Nima had discovered she was out of sheer black tights. In a moment of poor judgment, she had borrowed a pair from Sarana's drawer. She had ordered replacements online immediately, but they hadn't arrived yet. Stay there, Sarana said, leaving the room. Nima didn't dare move. The edge of the stool pressed into her midsection as she leaned over it, breath shallow. She felt exposed and foolish. Sarana returned holding a parcel. This came in today's post, she said evenly. Addressed to you. Inside were several pairs of tights. Well, Sarana murmured, running a hand lightly through Nima's hair. That solves part of the mystery. There was a pause. But borrowing without permission is still borrowing. Before Nima could respond, Sarana delivered a swift reprimand with a hairbrush. 3 sharp strikes that left her blinking back tears more from shock than pain. Stand up, Sarana said briskly. I need space to finish getting ready. While I do, I have questions. Nima rose, rubbing her sore backside, trying not to show how flustered she felt. What did you wear? Sarana demanded, applying foundation in the mirror. A mustard velvet dress. Long sleeves. From Zara. Short one. Yes. And heels. Black ones. Sarana smirked slightly. Did you look a little daring? Nima hesitated, which was answer enough. Was it just you, Mel and Vari? No. 3 of Mel's friends too. Late night. Wild. Nima snorted softly. 2 or 3 glasses of wine. Nibbles. Mel was exhausted. Very tame. Sarana shook her head. All dressed up and nowhere dramatic to go. They moved on to lighter topics. The baby's name, mutual teasing about unfortunate naming trends. Eventually Sarana concluded. I approve of you socializing. I approve of you blending in like a normal woman your age. But we don't take things that aren't ours without asking. Yes, Nima murmured. A week later, Nima had fallen comfortably into the office rhythm. She had learned the systems quickly and quietly begun making herself indispensable. Not just to Sarana but to the rest of the staff. Sarath happily handed over minor administrative burdens, delighted to focus solely on his beloved document precision. Vari, however, proved self-sufficient enough to frustrate Nima's ambitions of being everyone's quiet organizer. Late Monday morning, just as Nima reached for the coffee machine, an email notification appeared from Sarana. Subject: Creative Writing Exercise. 5,000 words. Due Friday. Fictional scenario loosely inspired by her own. Nima stared at the screen. Creative writing was not in her job description. By Thursday night she was regretting not questioning the assignment. Writer's block gripped her. In desperation, she leaned on online inspiration to help structure her ideas, submitting the finished piece on Friday with more relief than confidence. The following Monday morning, as she dressed for work, Sarana told her to close her eyes. When she opened them, Sarana held up a black underbust corset. Looked small. Sarana helped fasten it, tightening the laces with deliberate firmness. The corset pushed her silhouette upward and compressed her waist uncomfortably. Breathing required focus. What's this for? Nima asked. You'll see, Sarana replied lightly. With her usual office outfit layered over the top, the corset served no visible purpose, but sitting would be uncomfortable. Standing on the bus would be unavoidable. At 11, Sarana summoned her. She held a printed copy of the story. This, Sarana began, is remarkable. Not in a good way. She outlined inconsistencies with surgical precision. The protagonist's name misspelled in places. Earrings changing color mid-story. Descriptions that contradicted earlier details. Obvious signs of careless editing. Nima's stomach dropped. Remove your outer clothes, Sarana instructed calmly. Corset and knickers only. What? You heard me. The corset made bending difficult, but eventually Nima complied. Sarana handed her a tight dress. Your character is described as looser multiple times. I assume you meant loser. Words matter. The dress fit only because of the corset's compression. That, Sarana said pointedly, is tight, not loose. Next came a pair of long green beaded earrings to correct the sapphire inconsistency. Then lace-topped black hold-up stockings to address the chaotic legwear references. Finally, towering patent heels, far higher than Nima's usual pair, to correct repeated spelling errors about heels. Each correction came with calm, cutting commentary. When she was finished, Nima stood transformed, corseted in a short dress, stockings visible if she moved carelessly, towering heels altering her balance. Did you at least enjoy writing it? Serena asked. Yes, Nima admitted. The main character was supposed to be insufferable. Good, Sarana said. Then there's hope. She handed her a short matching coat and a bright red lipstick. Dry cleaners. Pick up my skirts and coat. Wear this lipstick. Nima complied. Walking in the high heels required concentration. The short coat offered minimal coverage. The lipstick felt bold and theatrical. At the dry cleaners, she noticed George behind the counter. Shy, soft-spoken George, who always seemed slightly flustered around her. Hi, George. I'm here for a pickup. His eyes widened. Sure, Nima. Just a moment. There was a delay. He awkwardly asked her to wait 10 minutes. I'll grab coffee next door, she said. Want one? He nodded, speech failing him. When she returned, there were no chairs. Perching on the counter edge in towering heels proved risky. The lace tops of her stockings were difficult to conceal. George tried very hard not to stare. After an uncomfortable silence, he gathered courage. Would you, maybe, like to go to the cinema sometime? Nima recognized the effort it took him to ask. If there's a film about a tyrannical boss being overthrown by her staff, she replied lightly. I'm interested. At that moment, his mother entered, glanced at Nima's outfit, and chuckled knowingly. Told off by the boss? She asked. Nima glanced at the red lipstick mark on her coffee cup. Something like that, she said with a faint smile. Sometimes getting ahead in business means doing what's asked of you. She adjusted the hem of her coat slightly.